Welcome, welcome, welcome. So you're here for a lesson with Anna Breytenbach about tips on living kindly. And I'm looking forward to this. I'm sure you are. I am going to hand over now to Anna. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, P. Great to be back with you. And I have with me completely deaf, but all-knowing in other ways, Ocean Cat. So she's here to make sure that I convey things accurately.
She has very wise eyes.
Yes, she does. And she's happy with that. She's going to remote control me.
Excellent.
As the cats do. Great. So in my work and my joy in playing with interspecies communication, I quickly learned how inadvertently unconscious I was being and how I was moving around in my daily life. Even doing the case studies for the institute that I studied with, and then spending 10 years doing professional consultations with domestic animals, I was able to bring the full attention of my awareness and consideration to those consultations. But I wasn't translating that back into how I'm behaving literally in my own backyard, or how I'm moving about, in the city or in the countryside. It was no good being in a big rush to get to a consultation for a very conscious conversation with a horse and stomping the shortcut across the grassy fields instead of taking the path, thereby unnecessarily squashing all sorts of other beautiful sentient life forms, insects and worms and so on, just because I was in a rush and too busy and too clumsy as the human to be aware. But another thread to my emerging and deepening into the nature-based space has been the tracking and deep nature connection and mentoring kids and adults in ecology and in the kind of awareness that has us seeing and knowing again like the original peoples used to do. And our modern humans' brains have not changed since our human ancestors. Our habits have, but not the very blueprint. And so we can all again access this. So what I'd like to speak about is some very five sensory considerations, but what they bring forward is the possibility for us to have fantastic conversations and even data-free connections with the other beings with whom we inhabit this physical space on planet Earth. I'd like to share just a few photographs that illustrate some of the points that I'm going to make, just so it's not my sort of talking head the whole time. But what does it mean to be living kindly? Even kindness can be a concept that makes us believe that has to be some very overt act of kindness, maybe even seen and witnessed and appreciated, something we want to be thanked for. But really, kindness is actually a state of being. It's not an act. It's a state of the heart. There's a softness, an inner softness to it. It's a propensity or a potential for kind acts. But kindness is actually a gentle feeling inside where one also regards all of life and all of creation with equal respect and equal regard. So I'm just going to show a couple of photos along the way of some of the things that I'm alluding to. Living kindly might seem very simple, but I find it difficult for me as a modern human to actually slow down enough to bring attention to this. That's one of the things I need to do, is make a commitment to taking more time. And isn't it true that just when I'm in a rush to leave for somewhere, it's then that I discover the insect on the inside of the window, stuck against the glass, desperately trying to flap to get out. It's not a window that can open, and it's going to take me time to go get all the required, piece of paper or cardboard and the glass or Tupperware and chase the poor insect around. But this is what it takes to be living in harmony with our neighbors, our non-human neighbors. It just takes us being present and available for what might be needed. It just is true that even as we're moving, doing whatever we're doing, we are unwittingly creating an impact on the earth. We know about things like carbon emissions, and hopefully we're conscious in our shopping choices and these sorts of ways that make sure we're not using more resources than is necessary. We don't need to be buying the imported fruit in the supermarkets. Really just try to keep it local and support the minimum use of resources and the things that you are procuring for your own well-being. But everything that we've ever used is, if not physically, like the plastic straw example, is certainly energetically a little imprint or a track that we're leaving on the earth as well. In fact, every thought that we're thinking is a blip on the radar of the universe, and continuous echoing, the echoes of these ripples continue to go out. So every plastic straw we've ever used is actually now our personal trail out there somewhere in the oceans. And if we are mindful and kind towards the unseen consequences of our behavior, we would care to pay attention to some of these things. As we're stepping out of our front or back door or going about our business, there's some basic care we can take. Care as demonstrated by the first letters of these qualities that I have up on the slide at the moment: consideration, awareness, respect, and empathy. And perhaps it does start with the mental act of consideration. I find that quite a cognitive thing. I have to consider the path I'm taking to my car. I bother to look down and consider what little creatures might be there, or what spiders might have spun their web during the night. And believe me, even that mental act of consideration is absolutely felt and appreciated by those who are on the receiving end of our kind thoughts. It's not much mental effort to just assess the surrounds and consider my right here and now impact as I'm moving about. Of course, consideration comes into play in other things also, like which household cleaning materials I'm choosing to buy or to make. What am I throwing down the drains? That's also ending up in the soils, in the earth, and in the oceans. So as we step out with consideration, we are automatically noticed, and we're taking who we are out into the outdoors. And for sure, that's causing a lot of alarm amongst the birds or the squirrels or the other critters. Even if we're moving on tiptoe and trying to be careful, if we have a very busy mind, we're taking that megaphone outdoors or into any environment. And that is going to be sending off very strong signals, silent signals, that is picked up energetically on a quantum level by all of nature. Even plants perceive the energetic state of humans passing by and react to those as much as plants can. Perhaps they can't run away, but research has shown that plants fitted with very delicate motion sensors do try to move away from people with unkind intentions. This has been proved. Let's consider that there might be other little wild ones out there, rabbits or bunnies or burrowing animals, or do we really want to make the birds have to use more energy than is necessary, that they've tried so hard to get for their bodies with the foraging and trying to find food? And every time we make a bird fly, we're making them use some of that energy, thereby creating more hard work for them to have to go to try to replenish those calories so that they can literally survive the day. I've sometimes heard people in the dog park or on the beachfront say, oh, look at that stupid bird. It could fly away, but it doesn't. It's just walking. Well, of course, it's just walking away, because it's practicing the conservation of energy principle for very good life-sustaining reasons. And if we're moving with awareness, there's a big difference between how we humans are and how the animals are. Even taking our dog for a walk, our mind is very full of all sorts of things that are not in the moment. The grocery list, what happened at work, the projects, the phone conversations with people, the social media, what we're going to be having for our next meal. We're really not aware of our surroundings. Whereas by contrast, there's a good chance that our dog is only thinking of exactly what is right there and being fully with it. And the dog's awareness is therefore so much greater. It's in this 360-degree circumferential attunement to what's going on. We're literally blind. If we were asked to give an eyewitness account of the previous 100 yards we'd walked, we wouldn't be able to say a thing about it. All the things that the dog had seen or smelled or heard, we are completely unaware of. So when we move with awareness, we're just going to notice more things. not only so that we can tread carefully and kindly, but indeed there may just be this lovely sense of community and noticing who our neighbors are, noticing this feeling of kinship with the environment that we're moving through in a very practical way, not to just make a concept of it. Once we have become aware of certain things, we need to invoke the principle of respect. And this means not expecting animals to get out of the way just because we're walking there. I have a photo here where I was trying to drive along a certain road that horses were blocking, and clearly the horses were not interested in moving. It would have been far better to just respect their needs for being there. And indeed, after I tried to push them out of the way, I finally gave up, and I noticed that they were licking the earth, the dirt road, clearly needing some minerals and some salts that were there that they couldn't find where grass was growing. Just needed to slow down and be a little bit less of a rush. But we also need to respect the inherent sentience and intelligence of all life and allow them to go about doing exactly what they're doing to meet their needs, even if we don't understand it. We are not lords and masters of the universe. We don't have to.
Oh, it's frozen, Anna. Unfortunately, the screen is frozen. Oh, bear with us, everybody. We'll try and get this back again. Oh, okay. Let me just pause here for a moment. Hi, we've managed to resolve our little issue, so thank you for bearing with us. And we are now back with Anna. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you. So we come then to the E word for empathy, and empathy can be defined as knowing or understanding the other's truth from their perspective. This helps a lot when it comes to the little creatures. Imagine how scary it is, and sometimes empathy is at first an imagined act. Imagine how scary it is for them to see this big old human clumping towards them, and to think that we're the ones who are scared of spiders seems a bit ridiculous. But with this empathy, our heart opens to really allow ourselves to experience what their needs are and what their truths are, beyond even our human ideas. It's a wonderful way to appreciate the amazing qualities and the richness of lives of different species. And it comes very naturally to children. I encourage every adult listening to this to, in turn, encourage in children and keep alive this natural sensitivity, this intuition, and this empathy before we get educated out of it. So those are just a few photos which are illustrating some of the points, and I'm going to just switch tack for a moment to give a little moving picture example, which I'll speak to. So it doesn't matter if you're on, on audio only at all, because you won't be missing out on anything. But this is a little something on my YouTube channel. I have a little Living Kindly series with not many features at all, but just some practical tips, again, for how we can move in kinder ways. This might all seem very much about the physical considerations, but amazing things happen, again, because the intention of us moving in this way makes the non-humans feel so much more comfortable with us, and they might even actually come closer. So a simple example is what happens when we are going to be moving out into our front yard or backyard. When we open the door, we already run the risk of inadvertently causing some harm. We might be pretty excited to enjoy the fresh air or the view or get out there with our favorite cup of tea. But let's pay attention to that very threshold before we get too far ahead of ourselves. When it comes to the actual door, depending on the kind of door, be mindful that somebody might be living in the tracks at the bottom of the door if it's a sliding door. Be mindful when you're opening windows of any insects or spiders that might have set up a home or be busy storing their food there, and find a way to allow those animals to continue what they were doing. If I'm going out to the wood pile, I approach slowly and then very gently lift only the top logs at first to see under the wood if anybody is living there. I wouldn't want to be disturbing somebody's home. And if somebody is living there and it looks like they could easily move away, I gently encourage them to, or aid them to get to somewhere safe. noticing, of course, any spiders' webs and leaving those. If things are quite established, I leave them to be, because they have their natural life cycles. The animals might be up to resting or feeding, doing what they need to do. I can come back another day for that particular piece of wood. When it comes to the actual garden as well, what we humans call untidy or messy is actually just nature being herself. Leaf blowers are the strangest invention to me. Pretty unkind to leaves and all the critters and all the microorganisms that live there too. And so if I'm coming to do some gardening, I'm going to be very careful to move aside the leaves carefully and to make sure that I'm not going to be cutting an insect body in half or doing something unkind, unwittingly. All of this should be approached without being in some sort of paranoid mindset. This is not about walking around in an anxious state of contraction. It's just about moving with about as much awareness and kindness as we can. And there are ways to still be living in harmony with our environments like this. Of course, leaving the leaf litter lying around and the detritus contributes greatly to the health of the soil and is food and shelter for so many of the animals living below or on the ground. I also chose to put a bat box in my garden and had the bright engineering idea to put it on the tallest tree, not thinking and noticing that the tree moved a lot in the wind. And gosh, did the bats get completely motion sick. It was a horrifying experience for them after one visit to check it out, and they completely abandoned the experiment. And so I had to again hire help and a ladder and go and relocate the bat box to somewhere more stable. I had not been in empathy and thinking about their needs. And with the bird bath too, I love to have a bird bath to give the animals water and the opportunity to wash and for the beauty of seeing them close. But if I left it level or with deep water, other creatures were drowning in it. So by just tilting the bird bath, you create a shallow end and a deep end. And then in the deeper end, place some sticks or twigs so that those small insects that do get caught in there, who also need water to drink, do have a way to get out safely. A little kindness every day goes a long way. And that's the message I'd like to leave you with. Just something to consider in how we're moving about. When I started doing this, there was an amazing thing that happened also. I found that the insects began to trust me a whole lot more and actually come towards me, feel perfectly comfortable to sit on my arm, to essentially hang out and sort of have what felt like some friendly moments. I really, really got to have so many more friendships right in my backyard. And so many people make a spiritual concept of animal communication or of telepathic interspecies connection. We're seeking spiritual enlightenment and to get somewhere other than where we really are. I would love to see the true definition of enlightenment being the lightening of our impact on the natural world, so that we can again rejoin the community of the web of life as equal participants and as joyful friends to all the others. If you'd like to find out some more about these harmonizing tips, you're welcome to go to my Animal Spirit channel on YouTube. That's Animal Spirit, all one word, or the website animalspirit.org, or Instagram, Animal Spirit Adventures. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to hearing some stories. Feel free to post on any of these channels or in the groups associated with this wonderful summit about how you are experiencing and loving your friendships with the wild ones all around us.
Oh, wonderful. Anna, thank you so much. Beautiful, beautiful note to end on.
Thank you, P.
Thank you.